Okay. And what is the basis for conservation of linear momentum? It comes from motion of center mass. And what we did yesterday, but basically, if there are number of particles, we can, if number of particles, we can treat them as motion of only one particular point. Which particular point we consider motion of is center of mass. So center mass, entire system of particle, we replace with one particle, entire mass placed at the center of mass, and all external forces, not internal, all external forces which are acting on all the particles, also that force also resultant force we apply, external force also apply at center of mass. So and then that will give me center of mass motion. And from there we arrived at certain conclusion. So if we have all external forces, summation of x component of external forces will give you entire mass into AC x component. It will give you x component of acceleration of center mass. But if all external forces x component is 0, it means the center mass has no acceleration in x direction. If it has no acceleration, its velocity of center mass in x direction will remain unchanged. And so this is a condition. So one condition is what you're looking at. If this is a condition here, if this is a condition, VCM remain constant. And VCM also, which component? X component will remain constant here. We're looking only at X component. And this is a formula for VCM. If this is constant, it means this term is constant. And when I look at closely at this term, what is MIVI indicate? MIVI indicate here momentum of ith particle. So summation of momentum remains constant. So this condition leads to this term is sum of momentum of all particles which are part of the system. It remains constant, which is called conservation of linear momentum in x direction. So what is the condition when we can apply conservation of momentum in x direction? If we take resultant x component of all external forces, it should add up to 0. Okay. Let's take some examples, simple examples. So one of very common, let's start with a very simple one. So this is a space shuttle, and this is how the space shuttle work. We have briefly discussed as part of laws of motion. Let's do that again. The space shuttle is traveling the speed of 4,000 kmph. So this space shuttle, we represented this, is traveling the speed of 4,000 kmph. And let's say the mass is m with respect to Earth in the ground frame. It ejects a module backwards. So not gas here, it is some module ejected backwards. And you might have seen they do eject module back in the backward direction, and you might have seen in some video clipping also. And weight of weighing 1/5 of residual part. So this part also we have to be careful. This something is not 1/5 of the original mass, is 1/5 of the residual mass. So what does it mean? If this module mass and this mass here, if this mass is x here, it is 1/5 of that. So what does x plus pi by 5 mean? So the total mass here, x plus x by 5, has to be the original mass m here. So based on that, we arrive at, see, this mass is m by 6, and this becomes 5m by 6. So this part is 1/5 of the residual mass. With the relative speed of 100 kilometers per hour with reference to state of the shuttle before ejection. So we'll see that part again. This part also important to understand. So this 100 kilometer per hour, let's understand here. Okay. So here it is given relative velocity of the module. 100 kilometers is what? It's a relative velocity. With respect to, whenever relative velocity is given, there are two cases possible. So this velocity of this module, which is ejected, its velocity can be given reference to the speed of the shuttle before this module is ejected, or it can be with respect to the speed of the remaining part of the shuttle after it is ejected. So there are two cases here. So relative velocity, two possible cases. Later on, we'll come across other case also. It can be related to before or after velocity. So this is kind I would call as before velocity of the shuttle, and this is the after velocity. In this case, very clearly it is given state of shuttle before injection. So let's write is what is given, what is ms indicate velocity of module with respect to the shuttle, and it is given in backward, means it is minus 100 kmph. I've just used the basic formula. It is equal to Vm minus Vs. And what is Vs here? Vs represents to this part, not to this velocity. So Vs is 4,000 here. It is pre-ejection. So from this, if I substitute here 4000, easily I arrive at what is the speed of the module. Speed of the module in the ground frame is 3900 kilometers per hour. And this is the velocity what we need to find. The rest all is fairly simple. Important point in this question was to understand relative velocity related to this state or this state. Okay. So in this case, we apply conservation of linear momentum. Reason we can apply conservation of linear momentum, if I take them together as a system, no external forces, only internal forces are acting. So linear momentum in the direction of motion will remain unchanged. This is initial state, and this is the final state. So we simply equation we form, and we get our answer. So this equation we get here. And let's look at this. This is one way I have applied conservation of linear momentum from ground frame of reference. We can also apply conservation of linear momentum from center mass frame of reference. What is center mass frame of reference? Center mass velocity is equal to, we know V1, M1 V1 plus M2 V2 divided by M1 plus M2. But when we, in this case, center mass initially, both the masses are traveling together. Since only one particle, the center mass is same as the particle itself. The center mass frame of reference will have a velocity equal to 4000 kilometers per hour. Thus, center mass frame of reference is moving at this velocity. So suppose you place yourself on imaginary center mass motion, which is moving the constant velocity, and that will not change. So if I observe, initially I see this mass moving alongside, it will have zero velocity. So later on, when I see from center mass frame of reference, what do I observe? This is my initial observer. I see only one mass here, which is at rest in center mass frame of reference. And I keep moving the same velocity. When this module get ejected, I will see two particles here. It has broken into two parts. This is still moving with the u velocity. This part becomes m by 6, this 5m by 6. And since velocity 100 kilometers per hour is given with respect to this speed here, which is same as center mass frame of reference speed. So 100 kilometers backward is the speed of module in center mass frame of reference. The center mass frame of reference velocity is same as velocity of the shuttle before ejection. So this will travel with 100 kilometers backward. So naturally what will happen, center, if I have to conserve momentum here, whatever momentum it has in the backward direction, this has to have same momentum in the forward direction. This mass is 5 times, so velocity has to be 1/5. So if this is 100, this has to be 20. On center mass frame, I can very easily notice this velocity has to come this value. So I can solve in both frame of reference. So in ground frame of reference, and so if a center mass frame of reference, this velocity is 20. What is velocity in ground frame of reference? Because center mass frame itself is moving at the speed of 4000. So ground velocity becomes 4020. So either this way or this way you can calculate. And if I slightly change this question, relative speed reference to state of the shuttle after ejection. Suppose the word was after ejection. It means this velocity of this module is 100 kilometers in the backward direction with reference to V here, not with reference to 4000. So that's what we need to understand here. In that case, my equation would have become something like this. Okay, velocity of the shuttle in the ground frame, rather not 3900. I would have replaced this part with V minus 100. It was given after ejection. So this is before and after effect. Next question. This is understood by most of you, before and after. Next question then. Bullet of mass. This is a very common example. A bullet of mass of 2 mil. Just visualize what the question is. This bullet given, mass is 2 grams. Traveling speed of 500 meters per second, is fired into block of wood, and mass of block also is given. This is 1 kg, suspended from a string of 1 meter. So this is the figure what we have here. Bullet after penetrating the block. See, if the block is narrow sheet, it may penetrate and come out, and sometimes may get embedded. If it gets embedded, it means the block and bullet acquires same velocity. Here this is not the case. It comes out the speed of 100 meters per second. Find the vertical height through which the block will rise. So as it comes out, we see after the bullet has come out, we'll see it will swing to a particular height. The whole thing will reach a particular height. It will swing like this. and it will rise to a particular height. That's what we need to calculate here. Let's understand how do we solve this question. So here also, if I take, because there's some force acting between block and the bullet, so we take bullet and block as a system. And which direction we take bullet and block as a system. And on block also, we notice other than internal forces, there are no other forces which have X component. So its momentum during the period of collision will remain conserved. So external force in vertical direction, hence the momentum in horizontal direction is conserved. For what duration? I'm talking only for time interval during which the bullet is in contact with the wooden block. So we are talking only which time interval of collision, which is extremely small. So during this small period, so when there's a large contact force acting between the wooden block and the bullet. Okay. But it will happen for very short duration. It will acquire a large acceleration during that period, but displacement is negligible. So I'm repeating this point again. During this interval, will it get displaced? No, displacement is negligible because the time interval is too small. So when we apply conservation of linear momentum, so let's see what is the conservation linear momentum I apply here. Every time I have to keep, this is my initial state and this is my final state. And all this happened in an extremely small time interval. So this also has acquired some velocity. So very simple here, this velocity is 0. I write simple equation. I get a value of V here. Very easy to find. What is the velocity of the wooden block after the bullet has passed through? After it has passed through, once I find the value of V, what is the maximum height it will rise? After that, what will happen is it acquired a certain velocity V. The maximum height it will rise, we can find out using V square by 2G. Thus, value of H we can calculate. So we get value of V from here, and then you can find H. Okay, to find H here, but the once one question comes to our mind, what he had done here, in between he applied conservation of linear momentum, and then to calculate this height here, after this velocity and when it rises to maximum height, I have applied conservation of mechanical energy. The question comes, can I apply conservation of mechanical energy to which two state? When bullet is about to hit the wooden block, and the final state when the wooden block has risen to maximum height. Can we apply conservation of mechanical energy to this initial state and final state? What is the final state? The velocity of wooden block has become 0. It has risen to the maximum height. When it rises to maximum height, at that time, it is at the state of momentary rest. Can we apply conservation of mechanical energy? Answer is no. When wooden block is maximum height, because in between this internal forces are acting, which are not conservative. Reason they are not conservative, the work done by internal forces is not 0 here. Because I have mentioned earlier also, work done by internal force is 0 when the relative displacement is 0. Here the relative displacement between bullet and the block is not 0. That's why work done by internal force is not 0. We cannot apply conservation of mechanical energy directly to initial state and final state. So it is passed through two states. So one state is when the bullet is passing through the wooden block. During that period, momentum is conserved, but energy is not conserved. After it is passed through, then its energy remains conserved. Next question here. Again, conservation of momentum. This is also common kind of example. So you have a platform, and we can have in several different forms. So a man of mass m. So man is standing on a platform which is kept on a smooth surface. The moment you mention a smooth surface, it means even the ground also cannot apply friction force. So no external force acting in the horizontal direction. So trolley of mass m. So trolley mass m is this is my man here, and he jumps with the relative speed of v. So this man jumps here, and this Vm. So when man jumps here in ground frame, this Vm is velocity of the man and Vt is velocity of the trolley. And here, since we are certain velocity of trolley in the backward direction, I have assumed the direction to be backward here. So this is particular. So when we assume particular direction, and we should normally assume direction only when you are certain. Otherwise, we solve for all positive and then get the final answer. So no external force acting x direction. So if I take internal forces acting only between man and the trolley, if I take them together as a system, man and trolley as a system, momentum in x direction is conserved. So if I this the ground velocity, so in this case, this is how the momentum would be, momentum of man and momentum of trolley. So we assume Vt in the direction to be negative. And so this is the value, that's why it comes like this. But what is given here, velocity of man with reference to trolley is given as equal to V here. That's what is given. That's why just converting this statement into equation. And hence V has to be equal to velocity of men minus velocity of the trolley. But velocity of trolley is already negative. So relative velocity, since two velocities are opposite, and we should understand also relative velocity becomes equal to sum of the two velocity. It's like this: when the two cars are traveling in the opposite direction, relative velocity magnitude is sum of the two velocities. So here V value is equal to Vm plus Vt. This is ground velocity of man, ground velocity of trolley. And when we substitute, and we can easily find that. So this is one equation, this is second equation. We find velocity of the man is V into m by capital M plus small m. And again, what we notice here, this is something similar to what we had done earlier. If this is the relative velocity is again shared in inverse proportion of mass. So whatever relative velocity we had, that is relative velocity post jump values. This relative velocity shared between two, between man and the trolley. Okay, and if this whatever and which proportion, this will be okay. So if this velocity is v, okay, well basically same proportion, we can easily do that. What is the ratio of kinetic energy? And in fact, yesterday's also same logic is applicable here also. When we calculate kinetic energy of man and the trolley also, even kinetic energy also will come in inverse proportion of mass. The reason is pretty simple, you can easily arrive at. If we have to also calculate what is the impulse which have acted on the man and the trolley, of course, impulse is equal and opposite. Impulse exerted man on the trolley is this, because impulse exerted is equal to change in momentum. Initially, the trolley was at rest. So impulse exerted on the trolley is minus m into Vt. And that's the impulse value. We can calculate what is the impulse also. So if the question is about impulse, we can do that as well. Okay, I'll take a small variation of the question. Previous case, the trolley was at rest. Now let's understand what will happen. The trolley is already under motion. So my similar question, again, the man is jumping, but before he jumps here, the trolley as well as man, both are moving the speed u. So if the trolley is in motion, speed u. If he jumps, again, he jumps with the relative velocity, trolley moving there, then again, it jumps relative velocity v. Then what is the ground velocity of man and the trolley? Okay, so again, no external force we can conserve, but this time reason I'm taking up this question because we can also understand to solve questions on which frame of reference, center mass frame of reference. So center mass frame of reference, initially both were moving the same velocity. So I have a frame of reference which is moving with what velocity? It is like one particle we have seen earlier also. The center mass frame of reference will have velocity equal to u. So that's what will happen. And when they jump here, if I apply in center mass frame of reference, what would I see in center mass reference frame of reference here? I'll see this one. What does VTC indicate? Velocity of trolley with respect to center mass. And this velocity of man with respect to center mass. So this both velocities are given in which frame of reference? Center mass reference of frame. And in center mass frame of reference also, the net momentum has to be equal to 0. So that's what I've written here. Net momentum in center mass frame of reference is equal to 0. So what do we get from here? So what is relative velocity? Relative velocity, one thing you understand here, what is the relative velocity in this case here? Relative velocity becomes to sum of these two velocity. So again here, when you take relative velocity, is velocity of man minus velocity of trolley in center mass frame of reference. Because relative velocity in center mass frame of reference, another important point you can note here, relative velocity is same from in all frame of references. Because we are adding or subtracting equal quantity in both the velocity. So when we take relative velocity in center mass frame of reference, it is same equal to in the ground frame of reference. It will equal to Vm minus Vt. So this V is equal to Vm plus Vt. So again, we find V is equal to Vm plus Vt. Again, we get similar expression. And so whatever relative velocity we have in center of mass frame of reference, this velocity will equal to V into which proportion? This velocity of trolley will be into m divided by m plus capital M, and this velocity will be relative velocity into mass of the trolley divided by m plus capital M. So some of you follow, we can do that center mass frame of reference, but I think up to mains level question, center mass frame of reference may not be that important. So again, similar way, we can, these two equations we can simplify. we get V expression and we substitute here, we can calculate both. It again comes into similar form. So if that we find VMC and VCC, what is the ground velocity here? Ground velocity equal to VM equal to VMC plus VC. It becomes U plus this expression. So what has happened is velocity of the men, change in velocity of the men in both cases has come same. When it was at rest, see basically when U becomes 0, this was the velocity when the trolley and man was at rest. When trolley and the man both were moving velocity U, the velocity of the men becomes equal to U plus this expression. Both comes same, similar expression. Impulse in this case also same. But this other thing we notice, impulse depends on the relative velocity. So the man, when he was standing on a trolley which is at rest, he applied certain impulse to acquire a relative velocity V. If he acquires same relative velocity when the trolley was in motion also, impulse also remains same and change in velocity also remains same. Okay, this question is what we understand here. This question is this is very helpful to understand collision. Let's understand what happens here. There's one block here. This particular block also has a spring attached to its rear end. So it has certain spring here attached to the rear end. There's another block here which is set into motion. Whole thing on a smooth surface. Moment surface is smooth. We know if I take whole thing as a system, no external force is acting in the x direction. The rear block is given a velocity of 2 meters per second. The mass is given. The string is attached. What we need to find here, we need to find what is the maximum compression of the spring if there's no friction anywhere. And let's understand this question. What will happen? So as it moves here, it will come in contact at some point of time. Moment it comes in contact, will the contact force start acting? Actually, if it just comes in contact, contact force will still not act. Because for contact, force will act through the spring. And for spring to exert any force, it must deform. So only after the spring gets deformed, contact force will start acting. So soon after it touches the spring will start getting compressed. Why would spring start getting compressed? Because spring length will be equal to distance between A and B. As soon as A gets in contact with spring here, A is still moving at the velocity of 2 meters per second, B is at rest. It means distance between A and B is reducing. If the distance starts reducing, it means whatever rate distance between A and B is reducing, the spring also is getting compressed with the same rate. If the distance reduces by 1 mm, the spring also gets compressed by 1 mm. And so it will start getting compressed. Reason is as A has a higher velocity than B. As it gets compressed, it will tend to slow down. The moment the spring gets compressed, it will start exerting force at two ends. It will exert a force, since it is compressed, it will exert a wave force. It will exert a force on B in the forward direction. It will exert a force on A in the reverse direction. So what will happen? So A will keep slowing down and B will keep speeding up. Since the mass is same, this is very important here, this mass is same. So by the time velocity of B increases by 0.1, this speed will decrease by 0.1. If this increases by 0.3, this will decrease by 0.3. So basically, whatever there's a decrease in momentum here, there's an equal increase in momentum. So this 2, when it becomes 1.5, it has become 5. It has become 1.1, it has become 0.9. And when this becomes 1, this also becomes 1. So this process continues. So until speed up, so until A has a higher velocity than the B, process will continue. So what is the condition for compression to continue? As long as A has higher velocity, the distance will keep reducing and compression will continue. At the instance velocity on A and B are equal, the string will still be compressed. So let's get so as this velocity keeps increasing, this keeps decreasing, we'll come to state when both velocities are equal. When both velocities are equal, will the distance between A and B further reduce or decrease? So at that particular instance, velocities are equal. Rate of change of distance is 0. Rate of change of distance between block A and B is 0. But even at that instance also, the force on B is acting in the forward direction. So even soon after that also, the speed of B will further increase and A will decrease. It means after they have acquired equal velocity, after that the spring will start. For if they further speed, the spring will start expanding. So when is the state of maximum compression? when they acquire equal speed. Until then, distance was reducing. After that, B speed become greater, and its expansion will start. Okay. So at this stage, this will become so as soon after they become equal velocity, distance between A and B begin to increase. The spring will begin to regain its shape. That's called reformation. So until this point, it was getting compressed. Afterwards, is again expanding. So reformation is taking place. So maximum compression will be at the instance when velocities are equal. So if I consider all three as a system, let's apply both the cases are applicable here. At any instance, conservation of linear momentum is also applicable, and conservation of mechanical energy also is applicable. So when we want to find maximum compression here, I'll take the case both velocities are equal. So if I take velocity of B as V, this velocity also will be. How do you find velocity V? Apply conservation of linear momentum. So let's write equation for conservation of linear momentum. Initial state, and this is the final state, and this state corresponds to when both velocities are equal, and that state will be equal to maximum compression state. So what is the equation I get here? What is the momentum, initial momentum? 1 into 2, and this momentum, this entire thing has same velocity. This is equal to 2 into V. So this velocity we get equal to 1 meter per second. And once we have the velocity, then we apply conservation of mechanical energy. So I write this initial mechanical energy here. This will be only in form of kinetic energy. Here, this energy will be in form of kinetic energy of A plus B into spring energy stored in the spring, 1 by 2 kx square, x being the maximum compression. From here, we can easily find the value of x. And what we see here is a similar mechanism happens in case of two particles undergoing collision. If I have two balls also which undergo collision, so there also state will come when the rear ball comes and strike the ball in the front. If this has greater velocity, the distance between the centers will reduce further. If the distance reduces further, even after they come in contact, it will become like deform. It will deform like this. And after it gets maximum deformation, the maximum deformation is when both the balls have same velocity. After that, this velocity will further increase and separation starts. So there's a state of deformation and then again deformation. And same process I'm going to discuss in collision also next day, which is very similar to this case here. Only in case of spring, since spring is more compressible, we can visibly see its deformation. In case of two balls here, see if it is like a tennis ball, we can see its deformation in slow motion, but other balls, we may not be able to see the deformation, but there's some deformation. And because of elastic property, there's a reformation. And if reformation is complete, that's elastic collision, which you'll see next. One more variation of conservation of momentum. In this case, unlike previous case, what we notice here, so we have what is given here, two blocks are placed on the smooth surface connected with a spring. Initially, the spring is unelongated. So when we see this figure here, the spring is set in the natural length, so there's no energy stored, and the spring is not exerting any force also. So and two blocks are given. So this is 3 kg block and this is 6 kg block. This is given 1 meter per second in the left direction. This is given velocity in 2 meters a second in the right direction. What we need to find here, this very easy you can understand as this prime trying to move away. So between 2 points A and B, there's velocity of separation. And velocity of separation is nothing but rate of increase of length of spring. So spring length will start increasing. And as it starts increasing, as it will start exerting pulling force. So soon after the spring gets deformed, this direction it will exert a force. It will try to decrease the speed of this also. It will try to decrease the speed of A also. But in this case, if speed of say from 2 meter per second, if the speed has decreased to 1.8, if this speed has decreased by 0.2, mass is double, the mass is half. So here, if this has decreased by 0.2, this will decrease by 0.4. And that's it. Okay. So previous case, both masses were equal. So change in velocity was same because mass were equal. Here mass is half. So change of velocity will be double. So by the time this velocity has become 1.5 meter per second, it has decreased by 0.5. It has undergone change in momentum. This velocity would have become 0. So when this has become 1.5, still moving in that direction, this has become 0. Afterwards, what will happen? It has become 0, but the spring force is still acting. After that, what will happen is direction of velocity will become reverse. And so this is finally what will happen. So this also will start moving in the same direction. So that's what will happen. I think this I'm just explaining part by part what is happening here. But if you have to solve, it is very simple. What is the condition for maximum extension? Maximum extension condition is always the same. Both velocity must become equal. So in this case also, this is the condition for separation to be maximum. Rate of increase in separation has to be 0. Both velocity become equal. So which direction? So basically both velocity become equal. So would it become equal in left direction or right direction? That depends on which direction the initial momentum was, net momentum. So in this particular case, we notice the net momentum of the system was in the right direction. So when both velocity become equal, both velocities will be in the same direction. So this is the figure how it would look like when the spring is in the state of maximum extension. And the rest all is pretty simple. Again, we apply conservation of momentum. Find this velocity v here. Yes, Vignesh?
So the condition for both minimum as well as maximum extension is the same.
Yes. But what will happen when it is having, see, what is happening in this case? See, there was velocity of separation. You understand velocity of separation?
Yes, sir.
And so if the distance between 2 points, these 2 blocks are moving away from each other. And it is moving away from each other at a decreasing rate. So when the rate of decrease becomes 0, that's the time there's maximum extension. So when is maximum extension happening? Before just moment the maximum extension happened. Just before that, there must be velocity of separation. And when would maximum compression happening? Just before maximum compression, there has to be velocity of approach. They should be moving towards each other. Do you understand the difference between the two?
Yes, sir.
Both cases, velocities become equal. But one case, what was happening? One case, it was getting compressed before that, and one case, it was getting elongated before that. So when it was getting elongated, it leads to maximum elongation. When it was getting compressed and when it reaches 0 rate of compression, that's the maximum compression state. But both will same. And we see later, if we give this kind of velocity, what kind of this motion it will be. And it's a little complex motion. This motion is actually if I view this motion in center mass frame of reference, both object will execute SHM motion. But those are not very simple question, not needed at this stage. So for at this stage, I'm skipping that part. But some later on, after mains get over, once we discuss this question for advanced preparation, I'll discuss what will be the nature of motion and from different frame of reference. If I observe from frame of reference of center mass, so if I start moving with velocity equal to center mass, and from that frame, if I look at this mass also will execute SHM, and even this mass also will execute SHM, not from the ground frame of reference. So that's the later part. Ahlad, you also had some question?
Yes, sir. Like if we use the conservation of energy, sir, equation.
Yes, yes.
We'll get the condition that the sum of kinetic energy should be minimum, right?
Yes. So this is stage actually when the velocity become equal. If you calculate, that's the time when the kinetic energy is minimum. Very good point. This is something. See, if you look at kinetic energy, there's one other way to look at kinetic energy. Kinetic energy equal to. I don't want to discuss that one right now, but kinetic energy can also be described as kinetic energy of entire mass placed in center mass frame of reference. So kinetic energy is equal to m VCM square plus 1/2 m relative to VCM square. So kinetic energy is kinetic energy of center mass frame of reference plus kinetic energy with in relation to center mass frame of reference. When both have equal velocity, their kinetic energy in center mass frame of reference will become 0. Yes, that also is true. So when velocity become equal, that's the time when kinetic energy is minimum, potential energy is maximum. After we acquire V value, again we can find maximum extension by applying conservation of mechanical energy.
Sir?
Yes?
Sir, I didn't understand that point about the...
About point about?
About like MVCM square plus half
Yeah,
MV square.
that's why I say I'm not doing it now, but I think there's another way we can deal with it, perhaps when we get in rotation. And this is not needed now. But what I mentioned here, we'll discuss this in more detail when it is necessary. See, mechanics may have question, which these are, I think in mechanics, they are fairly simple questions. They are very easy questions. Mechanics question could be very tricky also, but we don't have to deal with those questions. Those level of question will not come up to mains examination. So, but if you are interested, maybe sometime separate session, if somebody is interested, I will discuss that one later on. Not for us, for everyone, it's not necessary. Even for mains also, this is not necessary. If interested, we'll discuss separately that part. Okay. So let's look at some more. We'll continue conservation of linear momentum. And some of these are kind of very simple question. A shell of mass moving horizontally explodes in two equal pieces. So this mass m, and it explodes in two pieces. So this is the initial state, and finally it breaks into two pieces here. And just before it exploded, it had momentum of 3p. So we just shown its momentum also. So there are two fragments. One of the fragment attains a linear momentum of 4p in the upward direction. So this part m/2, it has momentum in the y direction. So what is the kinetic energy gained by the system due to explosion? This is what we need to calculate. So most cases, okay, basically we deal with momentum and energy. So part is say explosion involves internal forces. This momentum of the system. So whatever the one piece momentum and some of the momentum of all fragments put together, both will be conserved. Okay, but energy will not be conserved because explosion involves release of chemical energy. So let's do that. Now let's conserve angular momentum. Whenever we have to calculate, momentum of one fragment is given. There are two equal fragments. Other fragment momentum is not given. So we assume it has px and py, which are the momentum in an xy direction. So when I'm certain, so certain cases I assume particular direction. When we are not certain, it's always best to take both the values as positive in the given sign convention. I have taken px positive, py positive, and depending on what the information given, automatically I will get the value in the with sign. If the sign comes negative, it means actual value, a true value is opposite to the assumption what I made here. So we conserve momentum here. So we conserve linear momentum here. Momentum is in the both direction. So if I write conservation of momentum equation, this is how it will look like. I have written whole thing in one vector form only. This is initial momentum. Final momentum of this piece is equal to 4p j cap. And this momentum will be equal to px I cap plus py j cap. So either I can write in this form or I can separately equate momentum in x direction and momentum in y direction. We can do both ways. So from here, if we equate I component, I find px is equal to 3p and py is equal to minus 4p. So naturally, it makes sense if since net momentum y direction has become 0, if one has momentum in the upward direction, this has to have momentum equal momentum in the downward direction. Once we get this value, rest all is very simple. So we could have written the momentum of second piece also I could have written as see they're mutually perpendicular. So momentum of the second piece would have been 5p. And if I have to write energy, well, I can use this formula here. P square by 2m is the kinetic energy. So what is the kinetic energy gain is equal to final kinetic energy minus initial kinetic energy. So I calculate those values and arrive at final kinetic energy minus kinetic energy. I'll get the value of kinetic energy gained. So, easily get an answer this value minus initial kinetic energy. There are some questions on projectile, and let's understand. I'll do some additional variations also, which I think are important. And those variations are normally not dealt with, but they are simple and easy to follow. A projectile is fired at a speed of 100 meters per second and an angle of 37 degrees. So this is 100 meters per second, and this angle is given as 37 degrees above the horizontal. At the highest point, the projectile breaks into two parts of mass ratio 1:3. So if this mass was m here, it breaks into two parts. One part is 1:3 ratio. One becomes m/4, another becomes 3m/4. Okay. So a smaller part comes to momentary rest. Find the distance from the launching point to the point where the heavier piece lands. So it becomes two part, and this particle comes to momentary rest here. So this kind of questions are very common, and some of you recall how we have done those questions. So this question involves two parts. Explosion happens over a very brief period of time involving large forces. And this point is important and we have to keep in mind. And those forces, when we take large forces, so compared to gravitational forces, the forces may act for very brief duration, but it may be even hundreds of times larger than gravitational forces. And whenever such forces are acting, many books use a word called impulsive forces, sharp impulsive forces. So we'll use this impulsive forces. Impulsive forces are forces which are much larger than magnitude of gravitational forces. So whenever impulsive forces are acting, we can neglect gravity force. That's the significance of impulsive force. So during the very brief period of explosion, and those forces which are in action are much larger than gravitational force. So while applying Coulomb just after explosion, gravity force can be ignored. Here it is not necessary anyway because it is happening at the highest point. But even if it was happening at some angle also, I could have ignored effect of gravity for very brief period before explosion and after explosion. And since gravity is not changed, other point what we keep in mind, so during explosion, momentum remains conserved. And since the force has not changed, so if explosion had not happened, it would have continued trajectory. And if we look at the trajectory of center mass, since the forces acting are same, the trajectory of center mass also remain unchanged. So I'll look at one question, what it means. So trajectory of center mass will be same as that of particle without explosion. Let's see that. So impulsive forces, since it acquires, is easy. Change in momentum is only in the horizontal direction. It implies impulsive forces were in the only horizontal direction. It had no vertical component. So, so what this question, do we need to find what is the velocity of other piece to find an answer for this question? Actually, it is not even necessary to find the velocity of this piece. Why it is not necessary, let's understand here. So since both of them do not acquire any vertical component, soon after explosion, both the velocities are horizontal. One of them being zero, another is non-zero in the horizontal. So do we understand that both the particles will reach the ground at the same point? So both have zero velocity in y direction. So if height was h, both will take equal time. Time taken to hit the ground from this point will be same as the time at which the projectile would have hit the ground. So both particles will hit the ground at time t is equal to capital T. So both axiom. So when they hit the ground, they will hit the ground together. And if I calculate xcm of the two particles when they hit the ground will be equal to r. Because if the explosion had not taken, the particle's position x coordinate would have been equal to r. So xcm also will be equal to r. That's the condition what we can apply. And what is r here? We can calculate the range. So the range is equal to, what is the range here? What is the range here? How do we calculate range here? One way easy way to calculate here. We can, this is 37 meter. This is angle is 37. So this is 80 meter per second. And this is 60 meter per second. So it will remain in air for 12 seconds. 6 seconds it will go out, 6 seconds will come down. So range will be equal to 960 meter. So xcm will be equal to 960 meter. We know m by 4 lands at which point? M by 4, since it acquires 0, it will land right below where explosion has taken place. It will land at point equal to r by 2 because it has no horizontal velocity. So I know position of one of the particle. I can find out position of other particle. So a smaller pass, this is position of the smaller piece at t is equal to capital T. So what is the equation I write here? Xcm will be equal to 960 meter equal to range. It will equal to m by 4 into 480 plus 3m by 4 into x. X is the position where it will land divided by m. And from here, if we simplify, I get x equal to 1120 meter. Next question is something like this. A block here, a block of mass mf 9 kg. I think figure itself has all the information. It has a circular cut. You can say this cut is in form of a cylindrical shape, 1/4 of a cylinder, called cylindrical, and radius is 2 meter. It rests on a frictionless surface. A smooth surface is means on the whole system, no force acting in the horizontal direction. Initially, the right edge is at, so I fixed a coordinate system on the ground. Initially, right edge is here, right? This is my coordinate system. A point mass of 1 kg, this point mass of 1 kg is released from rest at the topmost point. So this point, I release it here. Of course, it will slide down. Its motion with reference to the block will be circular, but in the ground frame, this block also will move. So its motion will not be circular as seen from the ground, but in frame of reference of 9 kg block, its motion will be circular. So when the what we need to find here, at least from the topmost point here, when the mass just slides off the block. So of course it will slide, and when it just slides off the block from here, it just leaves contact with the surface. What we need to find here, the coordinate of the right edge of the block. So and by now we should understand as if I calculate here in this system here, if I look at XCM and YCM, XCM is coordinate of center mass, x coordinate of center mass of the system of a small particle and the large block, both as a system. XCM will remain constant, YCM will not remain constant. Why would XCM remain constant? Why would YCM not remain constant? Vikram, can you tell me why would XCM remain unchanged? Why would YCM not remain unchanged? Vikram,
Yes, just a minute.
YCM will change. XCM will not change. Why? What's the reason here? Tejas, can you tell me why would XCM not change? Why would YCM change? Of
Yes,
these
sir.
two things, yes.
Yes, sir. First of all, there's no external force in X direction acting, and it's initially at rest, right, sir? So,
Yes. So initially axiom are both were at rest, but y direction force are acting. External force are only in the y direction. Axiom will remain same. So axiom will remain same here. So so one way of solving, so both particles, their coordinate x coordinate, both this block and this, both will undergo displacement in x direction, but they will undergo displacement in the opposite direction so that axiom will remain unchanged. So do I know what is the relative displacement of x along x coordinate? Tejas, can you tell me what is the relative displacement when it reaches the bottom here?
will it be 2 meters, sir?
It will be 2 meters. And because if I take a block, see, if relative displacement, I can choose one point on the large block. If I choose this point as my to calculate relative displacement, initially is a 0 value. And finally, when it reaches bottom here, is x coordinate with reference to this point on the block is 2. So relative displacement is 2. And relative displacement will be shared between two things, between M and capital M. So if this has a displacement xm and this has displacement xm, sum of these two has to be equal to 2, and the ratio of these two, xm by xm, I'm just writing the magnitude. The displacements related to it will be in inverse proportion of mass. So whatever, if this has a smaller block will have larger displacement. If large block has a displacement of x, a smaller block will have how much displacement? 9x. If a smaller block, large block has a displacement of x, a smaller block will have, since mass is 1/9, it will have 9x displacement. Sum of these two has to be equal to 2. So basically, easily I get x is equal to 0.2 meter. It means a larger block will move towards left with 0.2 meter in ground frame, and a smaller block will move 1.8 meter in the ground frame of reference. So a system external forces acting, and we can calculate relative displacement is 2 meters, displacement of block in inverse proportion of mass. And this is, I think, have put all are clear, 2 meter. So if I, from the coordinate system, if I show the final state, when the small one reaches ground, it will appear something like this. The block position would have shifted like this. And this part would have come here. And this is how it will look like. And this is how, and this block will slide. Sorry, this block has shifted by this distance here, and this block has shifted. This is how it is like. So how much the block has moved from here? This distance would become equal to 1.8 meter. The whole block would have shifted towards left. So though from with reference to block, it has moved 2 meter, but the block itself has moved back by 20 centimeter. So ground displacement x component will be equal to 1.8 meter. Now, the next part of the question here, this is something similar to what you had done earlier also. Can we calculate velocity of these two blocks here? Important point here is when it is just tend to slide off, the velocity of this block also will be horizontal. It is sliding on the surface. So this block also will have horizontal velocity, and large block also will have horizontal velocity. And these two velocities also will be inverse proportion of mass. Both are horizontal. If they had vertical component, this condition doesn't apply. Only when they have horizontal component only, then only it applies here. So using conservation of mechanical energy, I can find mg delta H, loss of potential energy is equal to mg into delta H equal to 20 joules. And that loss of potential energy is shared in form of kinetic energy. So what is loss of potential energy? One way of solving loss of potential energy is equal to mg delta H, which is equal to 20 joules. And this energy is shared between which two? It is shared between M and capital M. This is only when displacement are only in the horizontal direction. Vertical, it has velocity as no vertical component. So this will have which, this is, okay, with this is 1 kg, this is 9 kg. Which will have higher energy here? Which ratio energy will be shared? If this energy is K, this energy will be equal to 9K. Energy is inverse proportion of mass, and sum of these two is equal to 20. So what is K equal to? K is equal to 2 joules. So this will capital mass, this will receive, this will have kinetic energy of 2 joules, and this will have kinetic energy of 18 joules. That's how we can arrive at. So energy also shared in inverse proportion of mass. So I can write K1 by K2 is equal to M2 by M1, and K1 plus K2 is equal to 20 joules. That's another way I could have solved. K1 plus K2 is equal to 20 joules, and K1 by K2 is equal to M2 by M1. On these two equations, I can find kinetic energy, or you can distribute like this. And once you have the kinetic energy, you can find the speed also. Okay. Okay, I think we're almost time now. I'll stop here. I'll continue from here in the next session.
Thank you, sir.